Hola chicos, this is Miss Schaefer again. Today we're going to be looking at Gramática de Capítulo 6A. Specifically, we're going to be looking into the preterite of IR stem changing verbs. La información en este video está en página 302 de sus libros de texto. So if you want to find it in your book, you can find it there. The big question of the day actually has two parts. First of all, when do we use stem changing verbs in the preterite? And secondly, how do we use those stem changing verbs in the preterite? So by the end of this video, you should be able to answer these questions. To decide when to use stem changing verbs in the preterite, there are three things that need to be true. So unless you can check every single one of these check boxes, we will not stem change in the preterite. First of all, is it a stem changing verb originally? So for example, if you have the word hablar, that was never a stem changing verb. We don't have to worry about it. Vivir, not a stem changing verb. We're not going to make it stem change in the preterite. Secondly, it must be an IR verb. So AR and ER verbs do not stem change in the preterite. Only IR verbs. Lastly, we only stem change in the third person. This means the L form, el, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. We do not change in the yo form, the tu form, or the nosotros form in the preterite. So in the present tense, well, let's skip to the next page and I'll show you. Make sure you have this checklist written down. We're going to use it throughout this lesson. So we're going to start with the verb preferir. Preferir means to prefer, and in the present tense, you know that we would stem change in the boot shape. However, this is not the case in the past tense. In the past tense, like I said, we're only going to stem change in the third person. So, some people like to call this the sandal, but we're not going to stem change in the first or the second person, the yo, tu, nosotros, vosotros forms. Additionally, while preferir in the present tense is an E to IE verb, in the past tense, E to IE stem changers only change E to I. This is a lot like when we do the present progressive, like I am serving, yo estoy sirviendo, or I am having fun, yo me estoy divirtiendo. We're not going to change it to an IE, just to an I. So this is what our conjugations of preferir will look like. We cut off the IR to find that our stem is just prefer. Remember, in the third person, that E will change to an I. So we have yo preferí, tú preferiste, él, ella, and usted prefirió. So that's where we see that stem change. Nosotros preferimos, vosotros preferisteis, and ellos prefirieron. This might be a good time for you to review your preterite endings as well if you need to. Let's try another two verbs that have a similar pattern. So pedir means to ask for or to order, and in the present tense, pedir is an E to I verb. Once again, in the past tense, all E stem changers will change to an I, and we're going to stem change just in the third person. So our conjugations of pedir will look like this. Pedí, pediste, pidió, pedimos, pediste, sorry, that is not an accent mark, pedisteis, and pidieron. In the third person, we make sure that we change that E to an I. The last example that we're going to work with today is dormir. In the present tense, the O in stem changers changes to UE. in the past tense, it's only going to change O to U. Just like we talked about in the present progressive, yo estoy durmiendo. So our stem is dorm, cut off the IR, but then the O will change to a U only in the third person. It's going to look like this. Yo dormí. Tú dormiste. Él durmió. Nosotros dormimos. Vosotros dormisteis. And ellos durmieron. And you'll see that stem change in the L form and in the ellos form. Please make sure that you have these examples written down. And then we're going to do one that's a little bit funky and close up this lesson. So the verb reír, reírse means to laugh. And you might remember that sonreír means to smile. And of course this verb has to be a little bit different. So this is what it's going to look like. Our stem is re, but it's a stem changer. So the E will change to an I in only the third person. However, to preserve our sound, we're going to need to add a couple of extra accents as well. So the yo form is normal, rei. In the tu form, if we just wrote it like this, it would say reiste. We want it to say reiste. So we're going to go ahead and put an extra accent on the I in this form. The L form, our stem is going to be re because of the stem change. And normally we would add I-O, but we don't want to have that double I. So what we're going to do instead is just add the O with the accent. Rio. Our nosotros form, reímos. Once again, we don't want to say reímos, we want to say reímos. So we're going to put an extra accent on that I. We're going to do the same thing in the vosotros form. So you have reísteis, and to preserve that double syllable, we're going to need to put an accent on the I. And then our last form, our stem change, once again will be re, and we don't need to add that extra I. So instead of that, we'll just add eron, rieron. Make sure you have this copied down, please. Lastly, I just want to take an opportunity to look at a couple of verbs that are similar to the ones that we did today. So preferir, in the present tense we talked about, is a E to IE verb. Of course, in the past tense, it's just going to be E to I. And some other verbs that act like preferir are divertirse, to have fun, mentir, to lie, and sentirse, to feel. Pedir is an E to I stem changer both in the present tense and in the past tense. So we have competir is a vocab word this chapter, to compete. Despedirse is to say goodbye. Repetir is to repeat. Seguir is to follow. Oh, sorry, I wrote repetir again. That should say to repeat. Servir is to serve. And vestirse is to get dressed. Dormir in the present tense is a O to U E stem changer. In the past tense, it's just going to be O to U. And the only other verb that you've learned like that is morir. It can also be used reflexively, morirse, and that means to die. So our big question for today is, when and how do we use stem changing verbs in the preterite tense? So to decide when, you need to ask your 3 check boxes. Is it even a stem changing verb? If so, is it an IR verb? And if it meets both of those, are you using it in the third person? Remember that the third person means the el, ella, usted form, and then the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. How to use it? The E will change to an I in the third person, and the O will change to a U. Also, please make a special note of the verb reír and sonreír. so that you can remember that those are a little bit irregular. Just a hint for your honors cloud of knowledge as well. Whenever you see that a verb ends in a verb that you're already familiar with, you're going to conjugate it the same way. So for example, like I said, this is honors cloud of knowledge, but you know the verb tener. Tener means to have, and you know that the irregular preterite stem is tuv. Now you have not yet seen the verb obtener, but it means to obtain, and you can assume that because it has tener at the end of it, you can conjugate it just like the verb tener. So your irregular stem would be obtuv. If you have any questions about this concept, please go ahead and write them down so that you can remember to ask me. And if you want to do a little bit of practice, you can find practice on page 302. Also remember that conjuguemos.com is always a really great resource, and you can practice conjugating there. Gracias for watching, and I'll see you again soon.